I'm Licking County Commissioner Tim Bubb. I'm with Bill Weaver. And we're recording here in February of 2025. And we're going to talk to Bill a little bit about his life and his interests in the community, because his thoughts are valuable and we want to have those so we can share with other folks. Let's talk a little bit about this whole education thing, because it just seems like you made a name for yourself as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a motivator for young people. And I think anyone that went through your programs over a couple decades in the Licking Valley School District would agree with that. Your background, though, education, you're a Newark High School graduate?
That's correct.
And what year?
63.
Class of 63?
I actually remember when that was.
I remember 63 too. Well, I wasn't quite out of high school by that time, but did you go to Ohio State, or where'd you go to school?
Marietta College.
Marietta College, okay. Let's talk a little bit about your involvement with the Licking Valley Schools, because you touched so many lives there. You taught at more than one level. Just give us a sense of your teaching career. Where did you teach?
I taught beginning at Licking Valley High School.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I had seniors,
Sure.
interestingly enough, in sciences. And I started at high school. The first group I had were seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Those kids now are 74 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, you were a young teacher.
They remind me, yeah, I was a very young teacher
Yeah.
at high school level. And that was a great year because, like I said, I taught seniors, and they remind me of how old I am now at this point. And I enjoy hearing those interactions, particularly, I was a coach basketball, was up there in cross country kinds of things, but taught chemistry and business, math, and sciences.
You taught quite a range of classes. I know I've heard you at Blackhand talk about geology as well, and I always thought maybe that was an interest you had.
That was my major at Marietta College.
Geology.
Yep.
Well, that's held you well. Now, you taught in high school for a period, and then was your choice to go to middle school?
Interesting. It was my choice to be at the high school, which was great. I got to know Bob Tharp, who was the middle school principal.
Great guy.
Yes, and he, as the year went on, kept saying, "Why don't you come down and teach with me at the middle school?" And so I said, by that time, it looked like a good take, and so that's what I did.
Good. And you obviously got a graduate degree, or you moved on to administration at some point in the Licking Valley system. And I think most people remember you as a principal and at Toboso Elementary. So many people do. Talk about that, because that was a long-term commitment.
And how did I get there?
How did you get there?
Here's how. I, after teaching 2 years at the middle school,
Okay.
I was an announcer at the big basketball final hoorah, and okay, so I just did something funny because I like to keep people laughing.
Yeah.
So would you believe that I asked the school board member to come up, Mr. Montgomery, I want you to come up here, and he stood up. And with all respect, he had this rather large, I said, leave that basketball back there at your table and come on up here. Thankfully, I just made it up. I just did what I do. And he, of course, had himself laughing and others laughing.
Sure.
And we had the first all-state first-team basketball player that he was going to be announcing for.
Wow, isn't that great?
So besides having laughter going, at the end of that night, the superintendent comes over to me and says, you handle yourself pretty well in front of a crowd. How'd you like to be a principal?
And who was that superintendent?
That superintendent was Bob Spicer.
Okay.
And so I said, wow. He says, I actually have 2 schools that need principals.
Wow.
Madison Elementary, where I live 3 minutes from.
Yeah.
And Toboso Elementary School, which, from my perspective, I got, and it was the jackpot.
Yeah.
I'm the outdoors guy. I'm the geology. I'm science. I'm plants and everything like that.
And you were surrounded by it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
I mean, yeah.
When I get there, I'm like, I've only heard of Black Hand Gorge, and so I said, who do I talk to become more knowledgeable about Black Hand? And they told me this science teacher at the high school who's just retired, and when she took me through Black Hand Gorge, my brain just cranked at what potential there was for education through that
Yep.
amazing place.
Well, and you made a career of that. You almost made that your outdoor laboratory.
That's a good way of putting
You
it.
know, you think about it, because there's so many people that I know in this community that they were introduced to it by you and inspired regarding that by you. And so you probably put Black Hand on the map, but you also put Toboso and yourself and your kids on the map. Yeah.
Brad Lepper,
Yeah.
who has been a great friend from the time I was there, he was there.
A really smart guy who has, you know, he knows it all in terms of the history of the world here.
Archaeologist, historian,
Yeah.
and knows everything.
Yep.
And so we learned from each other, but that was just like heaven because of the educational probability I saw right away.
Well, and I think about the whole Black Hand region. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you made a difference there, and you stayed for a couple of decades at Toboso, right?
28 years.
28 years. And how many thousands of kids and families did you have contact with?
I'm not a lot.
A bunch.
A bunch. Because we had a Black Hand Gorge Festival.
Yeah.
We brought in people, and kids and teachers. Right away, I got the teachers to the library.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look out and divide us up into different groups for who needs to know more about the Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
who needs to know about geology and what's here at Black Hand, sorts of things. And it just brought an energy for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it started.
And one thing maybe we could touch on just to give it a mention is the Historical Society and that whole thing in the Licking Valley, because that's sort of an extension of the educational component, that preserving the history. And I know that the museum that you all created down across from the high school also has been used as an educational tool as well.
Oh, big time. And Dwayne Flowers was the president, and I was
Mm-hmm.
the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
We had a secretary, a treasurer, and the next thing you know, we've got people.
Former church.
That's right.
Former church.
But it was perfect for
Yeah.
all the stuff that came in, and we brought it.
And the Heritage Association, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Licking Valley Heritage.
Licking Valley
Society.
Heritage Association Society, and you guys really made that happen. But that's an educational component as well. So as we wrap up this thought about the educational thing, I've got to think that you view this as maybe one of the highlights of your life was your whole career in education.
Oh yeah, yeah. It made it. It was me.
Mm-hmm.
From college sciences and what I did there and got my master's degree through, and then I get into this place. And if you ever start a school, don't start it with the new secretary and the new principal, because my secretary was the best in Licking County from my perspective. We started on the same day, and of course I'm going, okay, what do we do with this stuff here? And she says, I don't know, but let's look there. And we started on the same day and retired on the same day.
Sounds like you had a little teamwork going.
We sure did.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely great in it all.
We're talking to Bill Weaver about Licking County, and we appreciate all that your comments regarding education, and we'll talk some more here this morning. Thank you.
Great.